so I go into abandon the grief in regard to the fear. So the object of fear is still there, but I abandon the grief in regard to the whatever that object is. And when I start doing that, I lose the sight of object of fear, where I'll notice the grief being lessened, it's ceasing, but am I paying attention to the object of fear anymore? No, I'm paying attention to more about the grief in itself.
As I mentioned before, whatever you do, it should not be rooted in your desire to get rid of the disagreeable aspect of that fear. So whether you could be, because you could be paying attention to the fear, but you're not trying to get rid of it.
I am, but then I stop.
Well, no, that's what I mean. Then it's a problem. Then you can also not be paying attention to fear, pay attention to something else because you want to get rid of it. And that's a problem. So the problem is not where you pay your attention. The problem is whether you're trying to get rid of the arisen experience or not. Whether you're overstepping your mark. Because it has arisen on its own. So you want to train in regard to the arisen phenomena that's enduring for you. You don't want to be replacing the phenomena or trying to get rid of it or prolong it or get the better one instead. That's not on you. So whether you're focusing on the fear, whether you're losing the sight of the object of the fear but looking at the grief in regard to the fear, that's all fine. That's all part of the same arisen experience of disagreeable. In this case, fear.
So like the pain or the painfulness of the feeling is still there. That
exactly. The disagreeable aspect of the pain is still there.
Yeah.
If you stop resisting it, the disagreeable aspect will stop being painful. Then it's just displeasing.
Yeah.
But that's easy to withhold. No problem. It cannot overwhelm you. But it's when you want to get rid of the disagreeable aspect, when you crave in regard to it, that's why you suffer.
Yeah.
You don't suffer because of the disagreeable. You suffer because of your craving of trying to get rid of the disagreeable.
Yeah. So what if, like, when I see that I'm craving to get rid of it, but then I see that I'm craving to get rid of it, so I stop, take a step back, and I
stop trying to get rid of it, basically.
Yeah.
That's why when you hear in these like generic spiritual teachings, just accept everything. There is like it works in that initial manner for people, accepting everything. Obviously, in order for it to work fundamentally, you need to understand what it is. But the reason why it works is like a blanket acceptance. Works because to the degree that they were resisting it, they stop resisting it. So it does provide that a little relief. But obviously, as a view of accepting everything, it's wrong because there are certain things that you overly accept. So then the attitude of just accept everything was going to double down your accepting. As in things that are pleasing, things that are agreeable, things that you actually want more than they actually are. That's why as a view, accept everything is wrong. But it works relatively when people resist something and then they accept it even through that wrong view. To that degree they were resisting, they stop resisting it, and to that degree they experience relief. But really you want to accept things that accept things to the extent that you've been resisting them, but not more than that. And you also want to resist things that you've been accepting, only to the extent that you've been accepting them, but not more than that. Again, it's not something, it comes down to training your mind, as I just explained. It's not something you can like catch in one moment or two, but by paying attention to that which your mind wants and which your mind doesn't want. And when I say paying attention, I mean like being mindful of, not trying to attend every second of it, but be mindful of the arisen experience enduring. Sometimes for a whole day. You might have a whole same mood present in the morning, in the evening for 5 days. Doesn't matter. So you want to be discerning that and then stop resisting it on that peripheral, general, background level. Like if you're in a bad mood, say, disagreeable, like bad mood is bad only because you're resisting the disagreeable aspect of it. If it's a and then why is it disagreeable? because you don't want it. So you keep fueling it in itself. You don't have to, but I want the pain. No, you just have to stop resisting it, because it's nothing to do with you to begin with. And that can become apparent if you're able to create some space for your mind to move around. That's why the view is the most important thing. If your view is, I must accept everything, or I must deny everything, or I must look at everything, attend to everything, 1, 2, 3, 4, not miss a moment, there is no space there to move. There is no space to reflect. And you are acting as if, as I said, as if your own mind is your own. If your own mind were your own, as I said, a simple decision, a determination to do something would be enough for you to do it, or to stop doing it. If you have a full say on the way your mind works, all you have to do is say no once, and that will be cemented. You wouldn't experience discrepancy, you wouldn't experience the pressure, you wouldn't need to restrain yourself. But your mind has a mind on its own. Mind is a separate animal. Mind is a sixth sense. Doesn't listen to you, so you want to train it. And you train it by teaching it right from wrong. So if you keep interfering and yanking its chain, even when it's not doing anything that's rooted in greed, aversion, delusion, it's not doing anything that's wrong, yet you keep yanking it, then it will think that non-greed, non-aversion, non-delusion is also wrong. Because you keep punishing it for whatever it does. That's how meditation techniques work. People just keep interfering with everything through their observance of the meditation technique. Just watching, in-breath, out-breath, in-breath, out-breath. Just mechanical. It's like you're mechanically trying to train an animal. It doesn't work like that. So that's the simile of the bull, as I started speaking. I want to just finish it now. But your bull is just wild, goes everywhere, eats other people's grass, other people's fruit, and that's a problem. So you bring it down to your own ground, where it can be, where it can move around, where it can find the food. And then you keep an eye on it, just so that it stays on your ground. So you don't allow it to go further when it's not supposed to, where you will lose the sight of it, lose control of it. But what people do is people chain the bull, and then if the bull moves left, they pull it right. If it moves right, they pull it left. They interfere with every thought, with everything that arises. So then that bull doesn't know what to do. You keep attacking it for whatever it does. And then it cannot differentiate good from bad. But if you let that bull, say he moves to the left, but it's still within your field, it's fine. Moves to the right, it's still. Then you realize, okay, I can move here, I can move here. Then it goes a step further into another. Then when you hit it, then you realize, okay. So it's not if I move left or if I move right. It's how far left and how far right I go. And eventually it learns, and eventually you will know. I don't have to look at it anymore. It will not go where I trained it to not go. That's what I mean, like, even people's meditation practice should revolve around discernment, peripheral mindfulness, from which you have the perspective. No, this is still fine. There is no greed, aversion, delusion involved. Stop trying to interfere. Stop trying to stop thinking, or whatever else people do today. Let it endure. Vitakka vichara means thinking and pondering. Means there is space for thoughts to move, to arise, to present themselves.
Actually, about that, do you have a Majjhima Nikaya?
Right next to it.
Yesterday I came across something. Here.
What's that?
If you go through this paragraph, it basically talks about Lord Buddha saying that thinking and pondering for too long can be tiresome for your body.
So the two kinds of thought. Majjhima 19. So bhikkhus, whatever a bhikkhu frequently thinks and ponders upon, that will become the inclination of his mind. If he frequently thinks and ponders upon thoughts of sensual desire, he has abandoned the thought of renunciation in order to cultivate the thought of sensual desire. Then his mind inclines towards sensual desire. If he frequently thinks and ponders upon thoughts of ill will, thoughts of cruelty, he has abandoned the thought of non-cruelty, and his mind will incline towards cruelty. Just as in the last month of the rainy season in the autumn, when the crops thicken, a cowherd would guard his cows by constantly tapping and poking them on his side, and then with this stick to check and curb them. Why is that? Because he sees that he could be flogged, imprisoned, fined, or blamed if he let them stay into the crops. So too I saw the unwholesome states, danger, degradation, defilement. So if the mind starts leaning towards the unwholesome states, that's when you poke it, hit it back, so it doesn't go there. It doesn't welcome it. Then he says, as I abided thus, diligent, ardent, resolute, the thought of renunciation arose in me. Understood, the thought of renunciation has arisen in me. This does not lead to my own affliction, nor to the other's affliction, nor to the affliction of both. It aids wisdom, does not cause difficulty, and leads to nibbana. If I think and ponder upon this thought even for a night, even for a day, even for a night and day, I see nothing to fear from it. Exactly. So you can think it. I'll finish. You can think it as much as you want it, because it's within the boundaries of wholesome. It's within the domain of renunciation. It's non-ill will, non-sensuality, non-cruelty. But with excessive thinking and pondering, I might tire my mind and body. When the body is tired, the mind becomes strained. When the mind is strained, it's far from composure. So I steadied my mind internally, quieted, brought to singleness, composed it. Why is that? So that my mind should not be strained.
Yeah.
So, see, your problem here is that you read this last bit and now you question everything before.
Yeah.
You calm your mind once you have fully established it upon the proper thinking of the domain of renunciation. In other words, by all means, overthink renunciation. When that reaches fulfillment, then you will see that, oh, actually, I can carry this further, whereby I won't have to think and be equally steady and calm.
Say that again.
If you develop thoughts of renunciation fully, properly, then you can start thinking about composing your mind internally, quiet it, and bring it to singleness, not before. So, in other words, you can develop second jhana once you have fully developed first. So yes, from the point of view of second jhana, first jhana is tiresome. It's coarse. That's exactly how the description goes. Oh, the coarse falls off. The coarse thinking and pondering has been subsided. But not from Putujana's mind or from a non-jhana point of view. The first jhana is more than enough for arahantship. And yeah, that's exactly suttas like this. When people would read, you read this bit, okay, so I must stop my thinking because that's tiresome. That will become tiresome only once you're fully withdrawn from sensuality, from ill will, from cruelty. When you spend day and night thinking about renunciation. Then you will realize that, actually, I don't have to do even this anymore. Because it got so developed, now I can quiet it. And bring the mind to that unification point. That's what I mean. By all means, think day and night about renunciation. Because the Buddha said himself, the thought of renunciation has arisen in me. It does not lead to affliction, does not lead to affliction of the others, does not cause difficulties. It leads to nibbana. Which means you don't need to go to the second bit that then he says, I quiet it and steady it.
That itself leads to nibbana.
That in itself leads to nibbana, but then you also realize, I might as well go to nibbana in an even more pleasant way. Because this is already pleasant from the point of view of being flogged, imprisoned, blamed by sensuality. You're free from danger of sensuality. First jhana is very pleasant. But from a point of view of second jhana and third jhana, first jhana is coarse. It's very coarse. It's not refined at all. But failing to see that there is the order of development, it's like the sutta of that simile of the cow, where the Buddha said the cow thinks, so let me go to the pastures I haven't been before. But before it steadies on the first stone in the mountain where it starts climbing, it wants to step on the second one and then falls in between the two. And it's like a monk starts thinking about the second jhana before he even fully understood and developed the theme of the first jhana. And then he doesn't get any. And that's exactly what happens. Okay, so this suits my view now. I must stop thinking. And then you forget everything else you read beforehand, which is like 7 paragraphs of talking how to think rightly, in order to arrive at the point from which you can see the value of composure without the thought, but not before that. It goes into jhanas. In a few paragraphs goes exactly what I'm talking about now.
No, I wasn't.
I thought he's going to talk about different things, but actually no, it just went the same way I just said it. It went to jhanas.
I didn't even see it as it, but yeah, leading towards jhanas. That's where I made the mistake.
And the sutta is called 2 kinds of thought. Not 2 kinds of you must stop thinking. It's right thinking and wrong thinking. Suppose I divide my thoughts into 2 classes. Then I set on one side thoughts of sensual desire, ill will and cruelty, and on the other side thoughts of non-sensual desire, non-ill will and non-cruelty. So, you apply the effort when necessary. So you pull that bull, you poke it, you hit it with a stick. When it goes towards sensuality, ill will and cruelty, not when it doesn't. If it's within non-sensuality, non-ill will, non-cruelty, great. Leave it, let it be. That's how it develops peace. Whenever a thought of sensual desire arose in me, I'd done away with it. Whenever I thought of ill will, cruelty, I've done away with it. So even if you take this sutta to mean that you enter the first jhana upon composing your mind, that's done after your mind has been fully cultivating only the wholesome domain of thought. In other words, you can't even conceive how you would steady the mind in the first jhana unless you fully abandon the unwholesome thoughts first, through thinking wholesome thoughts. Because it's not quite clear from this the way this translation lists it, but either way, what I said there is the order to it. It's the same principle. So you can't start like, oh, I'm going to compose my mind in the jhana without having done away with unwholesome thoughts and cultivated wholesome thoughts, without basically learning how to think properly. Then you can start seeing what's more peaceful now within this wholesomeness. Well, it would be really, really peaceful if the bull would just completely sit down and stop walking even within the allowed perimeter of walking, within my own ground. And that's how you bring it down. And then you can say that's the first jhana. Then you can abandon thinking about that bull. That would be the second jhana, and so on. It doesn't matter. The point is, you can't start composing your mind properly, unifying your thought, without learning how to think properly beforehand. In other words, you have to spend day and night cultivating thoughts of renunciation, non-ill will, non-cruelty. And again, that's in itself, from the point of view of ill will, sensuality and cruelty, that is effortless. The only time you need to make the effort is when there is the prospect of sensuality, ill will and cruelty. Then you make the effort to not delight in it, not welcome it, not entertain further thoughts upon it. But whenever that effort is needed, you do it. That's what means diligent and ardent. It means you do the work when work is necessary. 3 o'clock at night, 3 o'clock at night. 4 o'clock in the afternoon, 4. You don't say, I'll do it later. That means you're not diligent. But people would usually think diligent means every second. Every second. 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm watching. No, there's nothing to watch. Don't watch it. There is no sensuality, no ill will, no cruelty. You see it when it arises, because it's always on you to accept it or not. Which means it's always conscious. You just need to be mindful of it. So from that point of view, renunciation, not cruelty, not ill will, is effortless. It doesn't require any effort to not engage with sensuality. That's actually default. Sensuality requires effort. Ill will requires effort. Cruelty requires effort. But because people never understood that, they don't see it like that. They think renunciation is the painful aspect. Saying no hurts. Saying no requires effort. But it doesn't. Saying no reveals the pain of that which you indulge with, so you master the pain. Renunciation is completely out of it. So once you fully develop that, which, as I said, it's peaceful from the point of view of sensuality, then you can ask yourself, oh, can it be even more peaceful?
But only then.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Otherwise, you'll be just acting out of that sensuality. So in order to train an animal, you have to stop trying to control it, whatever it does. Only control it, pull it back when it does things that are rooted in greed, aversion, delusion. Same with the dogs here. If you were to shout at them all the time, They simply won't know what they're supposed to do. How can then your mind learn what you want it to do? That's what I mean when I keep saying to allow your mind to think, allow things to arise, to manifest. Let them endure, but keep a quarter of your eye, as in, is there sensuality arising from this or not? Then you just, again, you don't deny it that it has arisen. You just draw a line, you don't go there. I will not entertain this. I will not welcome this.
But then losing the sight of it, like.
Well, even the losing of the sight can be only lost on account of decisions that you made that were rooted in greed, aversion, delusion. That's why mindfulness is effortless, and that's why ignorance always comes down to your choice, ignorant choice. Which means you stop making ignorant choices, mindfulness becomes unshakable. You're not mindful when you're thinking, I'm mindful, I'm mindful, I'm mindful. You're mindful when your experience is free from greed, aversion, delusion.
Which includes anxiety.
Exactly. Yeah. That's why that's the root of all the problem and the solution to all the problem. Pristine awareness and the purity of your concentration. All that is just wishful thinking. You remove greed, aversion, delusion, you are automatically mindful. Even if you don't call it mindfulness, call it whatever you want. Means the clarity is there, basically.
Because doubt in itself, anxiety in itself are a decision, isn't it? Right?
Yeah, they might manifest themselves on their own, but then you decide to engage. Always. Same with doubt. You are not strong enough to not engage with doubt. And again, you can't just tell yourself, I will not engage with this. By default, you'll engage with it. You want to start including that initial engagement in that doubt, in that mindfulness, as belonging to that doubt, not belonging to you. And that's how you can, at any time, at any part of that engaged doubt, you can step outside of it. That's how you can abandon hindrance perpendicularly at any given point. Included in the arisen phenomena that you are mindful of. And then that, what you stop entertaining and fueling. And you have a choice. Shall I stay then with this general context, general picture, or shall I give in and attend to the aspect of the doubt that wants me to think further about it? And then you choose.
Yeah, the content can only so much overpower you, like.
Yeah, it overpowers you if you let it. It's like somebody coming in front of your door. They can't come in unless you let them in. They can be shouting there, trying to provoke you from the outside, but you're the one who then chooses to step outside and get engaged with them, or invite them in and get engaged with them. They can't do it by themselves. And that, when you recognize that, that's where the confidence arises from. Because you can have the whole world shouting at you, trying to make you doubt. But you know where the doubt is originated. You understood it, you went beyond its nature. That's why it said Sotapanna can have the whole world saying the Buddha was wrong, he will know that they are wrong. You know, from Putujana point of view, that just sounds like religious fundamentalism. But in a way it is. It's a right fundamentalism. It's fundamentalism that's according to the universal principles. It's according to the Dhamma. And by all means, everybody should develop it.